Let me know when you're ready there, young man.
I've had a good go. We're live.
Okay. Everybody would like to call the meeting to order. Everybody would stand and do the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Casey, could you please do the roll call?
Sure thing. John Guglielmo.
Here.
Tim Clark.
Here.
Audra Off. Here. Sarah Bashinsky was not going to be here. Chris Boucher is not here. Ken Chester is not here. And then Tara Ryder here.
Okay, so we have to accept the agenda. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion.
Tim and Audra, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, do we have any public comments at all online? No? All right, moving right along. Yeah. All right, I am gonna throw this over to Mr. Rader with the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee.
So we presented, and we're going to now present our presentation.
Just for you, just to be aware of the intent for it's
And welcome, Tara, to your first official meeting in attendance as a board member.
I actually set it up so that I can have it kind of, you'll see here that I kind of have it pop up on the sides. So do you want me to just have the camera focused on you guys?
I don't care about the camera, I just know that that's not my presentation.
Oh, it's not? Oh,
No.
just click once. Sorry. I just had that as a little opening thing. Or, okay, there we go. My
That's
bad.
my presentation.
Sorry.
And now we're looking good, thank you. So welcome, here is our budget workshop number 2. So tonight we're going to cover with providing our business direction again through transparency and detail. And our number projections again were estimates based on historical baselines, the consultation with the team, and our business costs. So tonight's topics are strategies. We're going to look at how to continue moving forward and fortify our future. Our revenues, update, plant, operations and maintenance, transportation, athletics, co-curricular, equipment, contractual and supplies. And tonight we'll also be able to present our first draft of our budget.
All right. We are going to jump right into some strategies that are part of this budget process that I'm bringing forward, having spent enough time here at Fort Edward to put some thought into the existing administrative structure and other positions within the district, and really take a good hard look at the current model in comparison to the models you've had historically in the past, and with models that I feel, through my other experience, are effective. In this slide, it shows some highlighted things that have an impact on our budget, and I'm going to spend a few minutes to take you through them. So, as most people know, I've agreed to stay on with the district. They've paused their search. As you folks have paused your search, so I've agreed to stay on through the summer and next school year, which I'm happy to do, and it also provides an opportunity to see some of these proposals through should you folks support it. Our current model, as you know, in administration is a superintendent, a business administrator, pre-K through 12 principal with a TOSA, and a director of people personnel services. 2 of those individuals are not with us, and we've talked as a board that the TOSA was intended to be an opportunity to pilot a program, pilot the position, and if it was something that the district would support, you would make it a full-time administrative position, or it should be eliminated. A TOSA is never meant to be in place for the long haul. And then, of course, Mallory's position was fairly new. I've looked at this structure over and over and over, and I feel that the pre-K through 12 principal is not an academic leader, but a school manager. Simply because the amount of information that you're expected to know to be the leader, the academic leader, from pre-K instruction and strategies and their behavior, all the way to kids looking to be career and college ready. That's a huge expanse of knowledge for somebody to be a true leader of an academic institution. We want our principals to not be managers, we want them to be leaders. In a pre-K through 12 model, even though we're small, you still have to know the same information of somebody who might have 6 sections of kindergarten. You still have to be an expert in how to have proper instruction at the elementary level. You have to understand the nuances of that middle school kid and the instruction that comes with how they learn, as well as being able to work with your high school staff in Regents type material. It's very difficult. And a pre-K through 12 model here, even though we're small, you're constantly on the run just managing the day-to-day operations, and you have very little time, and having worn this hat quite recently, you have very little time to focus on academic conversations with your teachers, or to have meetings where you actually analyze data and instructional practices, and is your curriculum being effective, because your day-to-day operation is all-consuming. So I'm proposing some things here that are kind of all tied together. They're not in isolation, but when you combine them all together, I think it works. And just give me a second, I'll take you through it, and then I'll take your questions, comments, and concerns. Elementary principal, pre-K through 5, and assume the responsibilities that the TOSA currently has overseeing the P2 Character Ed program and the school improvement, the 3 through 8 testing program, the summer enrichment, and our after-school enrichment activities, would allow an elementary principal to truly be an instructional leader. And also help facilitate a more enhanced and rigorous summer program. Early intervention is the key for kids' success. And when they're struggling, the sooner we can get them corrected, the more likely they're going to be successful further on. You then break out your secondary principal position, which would be a 6 through 12 position, and assume, in addition, their second title would be assuming a majority of the administrative responsibilities affiliated with Mallory's position. With 6 through 12, they can focus on that middle school, high school student. They can be housed in the secondary, where Mallory's current position is, and they can administrate the special ed department from an administrative perspective and oversee a certain percentage of the CSE meetings. There are a lot of meetings that come with special education for each student, but we also have a staff that can also, when trained, help facilitate CSE meetings. Your school psychologists are approved as CSE chairs, as well as guidance counselors and social workers can also chair special ed meetings. Those are all positions that we have here. The school psychologist you added a year ago as a full-time employee. So you have the administrator to oversee and work with the business office on the complicated funding that comes with special ed, and the placement of students out of district as well as in district. And then we also tap into other resources to help facilitate our CSE meetings. Those two positions will have more time to focus on those because of the third position, which is really taking your TOSA and making it an official assistant principal position with the authority to do your daily behavioral management on both sides of the house, elementary and high school, working with the two principals on the behavior piece, but also administratively officially running your athletic department and any other extracurricular activities we would want our school district to have. We've had conversations about wanting to have more opportunities for our youth. We want more partnerships with our towns and with our town and the village. having a full-time administrator that can establish those programs and relationships, I think brings great value, and they can take a lot off the plate of the secondary and elementary principal from a behavior perspective. As somebody who's come up through the ranks and done nothing but discipline, parking lot supervision, cafeteria duty, in my very first assistant principal job, all the way up through to where I am now, student behavior management can consume any day, all day, depending on what goes down. And if you are supposed to be observing your teachers or having curriculum meetings, and you get called out with a behavioral issue that requires a thorough investigation at the secondary level, or a lot of other things require work with outside agencies, an assistant principal can take on those responsibilities and free up our principals to be instructional leaders for both our regular ed and our special ed departments. I think it's important to note that in isolation for a school our size, a counterpoint could argue it's not necessary, but we want sustainable leadership here. We want to put together a model where somebody's going to come into Fort Edward and be able to focus on a certain band of information that they become the expert on, whether it be the secondary level or the elementary level, and really sink their teeth into it rather than coming in here and being spread so thin that they do truly use it as an opportunity to set themselves up to go somewhere else where they can become just a middle school principal or just an elementary principal. The assistant principal provides, with the superintendent, excellent support and coverage for both of them, I think, to be successful. Before we move on to the others, thoughts, comments, questions?
It is more than we've had historically.
Well, we would eliminate the Mallory's position. And we currently pay a stipend for an athletic director, and we would eliminate that position.
Okay.
And the TOSA basically is your assistant principal now, but we're changing their responsibilities
Right.
to be behavior and athletics.
So in the long run, if this were to be the new structure, it would increase over time. Like, all three of these positions are in this 105
Correct.
budget for this current year coming up.
Yes.
So the year after that, it'll keep increasing. So I just feel like the assistant principal is, I don't know, not that it's not needed, but it might be excessive, like 5 years from now. That's just,
From a financial perspective?
yeah, I think so.
Well, we're currently paying a TOSA. Administrative type money, not exactly, but pretty close.
Yeah.
Plus, we had to backfill because they came from a teaching position. We had to backfill that person into, the regular ed classroom that they came from. So the district looked at it and I think was prepared to jump on it historically to make it an administrative position, then decided to work with the current TOSA to keep it a TOSA for another period of time. I definitely get your point.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think what we got to look at this is as an investment of,
Yeah.
do we want to just be status quo? This is what Fort Edward currently has and what we currently do, and this is what our current performance is academically. Or do we want to try and put a leadership team into place that can work with our faculty and staff in a more manageable bucket for them to really lead us forward and be even better? And that's really the philosophy behind all this is we want to do better than status quo. We want to try and build a structure that pushes us
Of course,
forward.
yeah.
And I know you certainly want that too. We've had
Yes.
our conversations, so I certainly know that's how you feel.
And I think what's happened too is we have that revolving door. So any business becomes very inefficient when
Right.
all you're doing is just basically, here's a 2-year and then they're gone again. Here's another 2-year, they're gone again. We want to create that sustainable leadership. We want something where people go, you know what, that's what we're in, we're going to buy in. Now we have years that we can be a part of something that's amazing.
I agree.
So I think this, again, as we're trying to do, is create the fortifying the fork concept, where you're putting money into your business, not only, again, attracting awesome candidates, but people who want to make Fort Edward exceptional.
So there's, if I may.
Yeah.
So we had a really good discussion about this in the committee. I think all of our goal is to make Fort Edward a top-level school. You know, and quite honestly, we are not. And we have not been for quite a long time.
This will find air footing.
We've had top-level students, don't get me wrong, but we're not a top-level school. So we're a small village with a shrinking demographic. So when you look at moving to a place, you look at crime, which we don't have a whole lot of, and how good the school is. So we check off one of those boxes. So if I'm looking at a small town, I want to raise my kids in a small village and go to a smaller school, what school am I going to pick? You know, our goal should be, and I think it is, to be the #1 small school in this area. That'll help increase our population of the village and the school's population. That coupled with, I think that the students and the staff deserve to have continuity, and they deserve to have people that are leaders and not just managers.
Yeah.
And there is certainly a difference. And this pretty much summarizes our discussion.
Yeah, I totally agree with all
You
of
know,
that, yeah.
does it look great on paper? You know, money-wise, you know, sometimes we just have to get past that. And if the people that live in this village can understand what we're talking about, I think that they would agree that we want this school to come up a level or two.
Yeah.
And this is one way to do it.
When I said in the beginning that these are all kind of contingent on each other, I would not propose an elementary principal and a secondary principal who took on the pupil personnel services without knowing that they would have the support of an assistant principal also attached to this. Only because, having worn all the different hats since I've started here at Fort Edward, I do know that having a combined title, being a principal, is something that's definitely doable, knowing that you've got support to cover other aspects of the job. And again, I keep reiterating, the behavioral piece and the management of 350 students of all ages on a daily basis is very time consuming. If we have somebody in place to manage that, the ability for a secondary principal to manage that side of the house and oversee the special ed department, I do feel is a manageable component. Otherwise, I wouldn't bring it to you. It's not about just looking to cut a position. I do think it's a manageable combination when you look at the proposal in its entirety.
And from a financial standpoint, let me just also back that up. This is the year that we can kind of absorb some of these, what they look like high costs, because what we're doing is that throughout this presentation, you'll see areas where we've actually decreased. So
Yeah.
when we do the presentation, you're gonna
Yeah.
see how these numbers land. So this is very scary. If I was a part of the, you know, and this is my taxpayer dollars, I would also go, oh my goodness. Is there-"
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, this is the first
We're
slide.
gonna hit the 2x4.
Correct. We want to.
And then put the pillow on it.
Correct. But this is how we can sort of absorb these costs to make our goals be, again, that exceptional school, sustainable leadership. But as you see all these different things, there's ways that throughout the presentation, you're gonna see how we also saved money here and also absorb some like inefficient process. This makes it a lot more efficient as well.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, yeah.
So, are we planning on having the secondary principal be able to build our special ed classrooms that we're tuitioning? Overseeing our special ed department with making sure we're following all SPED laws, making sure all of our documents are going out properly. Everything that we had issues with in the past are going to be done properly because we've had issues.
Yeah, that was my question.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of
I
issues.
understand that,
And I don't want a repeat of those issues.
right?
So is this person, because we don't just need a secondary principal, we need somebody who's extremely knowledgeable in sped law, that knows what's going on. Now, I don't want it just to be put on the school psychologist that knows what's going out of that office.
Right, because we want them with
All of
students.
our annual
Right.
reviews, I mean, IEPs going out, what's being written in those IEPs, everything. I mean, that's basically what Mallory was doing, making sure everybody's accommodations are being met, all of these things. Is that what this person is encompassing? Are they bringing in those students that are bringing in I mean, because I feel like her salary was kind of being offset by all the tuition she was bringing in. I mean, it was kind of a wash for her position because she was bringing in so much with the kids that were being tuitioned into our district. And she brought in kids that we were tuitioning out back into the district, so we weren't paying that tuition anymore. So are we going to be able to keep that up with having the secondary principal? Are they going to be able to handle that as in their position? On top of the discipline?
Well, one thing when we were kind of brainstorming since September, we were never going to lock in on a person, but it was like a position. So again, of course, I love Mallory. She was phenomenal. We kind of, in my head, oh, that could be a perfect position for her. Mallory's frustration was always the discipline part. She always felt like she was always taken care of, as Ben was saying. This is all encompassing. So without that assistant principal disciplinarian kind of position, this frees that person up to do what you were saying, making sure we're following the laws of SPED, making sure all of the kids are coming in and keeping our kids, but also being able to be that secondary principal. So we did think of that, but the biggest thing is, of course, I never want to go back to it either. We lost money on the table. This is, again, trying
A
to
whole
look.
investigation.
We did, and to really make sure we are top-notch on every level. We obviously have to hire the right person who has the qualifications, and I think we're gonna get there, but we want the position to kind of also be attractive to people. This pre-K through 12, I think was scary to so many people that could have been a really good fit here, but was never wanting to take that beast on. This allows, again, talking to the people who were doing those and were frustrated constantly, never felt like they could get out of that disciplined world. This allows them to take that step back. Somebody else is dealing with the discipline and now become that expert of their field, be able to answer those questions, but also follow the laws and guidelines.
I just worry that it's two hats in one that you're still giving somebody to take on a special department and the middle school, high school is still the same thing. Are they still gonna be supervising all your support staff and making sure they're being utilized properly within the district and all of that? I mean, is that what we're looking at? And
I look at it more of, administrating, like you're talking about, the higher level administrative stuff for compliance and making sure that all of our structures are in place. And then the team approach with your principals and the assistant principal, I mean, that's the man, depending on where the person is, that's the person who's gonna manage that particular employee. So if you've got TAs in the elementary school, they're gonna fall under the elementary principal as far as the daily supervision and those types of things. But yes, their expertise we would expect to draw on their expertise of administrating the logistics of and overseeing a certain volume of the CSE meetings and the annual reviews and those types of things in conjunction with some other service providers that we have here on staff. And that's not, just so you know, that's not an uncommon practice for certain service providers like school psychologists and guidance counselors, social workers, if they've gone through the training process, to facilitate your standard CSE meeting.
And from a business standpoint, we of course don't want to lose the model we've created. We've invested in
Right.
those extra classrooms. We've
Yeah.
spent a lot of time and energy. We have good relationships with all the out-of-district students and their districts. So they don't plan on leaving us. That's not what we're
Well,
hearing.
it's so needed.
Yes.
Within all the other districts, there's such a
Correct.
shortage of certain classrooms.
Correct. And we're very proud of having that here at Fort Edward. So that's not the first thing, my thought was we're gonna keep building on that model. It's not let's short it down because we only have one person. It really is, let's use their expertise and keep building the program as we're doing.
We could talk more about it as
Did I
let's work our
cover
way
your
through it.
questions?
Write your things down,
From
write
the
your things
spec
down, we can circle back, but let's work our way through it, and then we'll jump into how all this looks in the big picture of dollars, and we'll go from there. So the second item is also a big ticket item, the 2 business office trainees. And this, you really gotta look at this from a perspective that in Chris's office, he has himself, and he has Michelle Sherwood, who's been a long-time employee here and is technically retired, continues to work every day above and beyond. And then we have Ron Black, who is also retired, treasurer from Argyle. 2 retirees are the cornerstone of our entire business operation. School business requires preparation and training to truly understand the nuances of school business. We are proposing through, a mentorship relationship to bring in 2 people who could, for 1 year, go through the normal cycle of running a school business office. And there's a sequencing that happens with any business environment, but particularly with schools. Like right now, we're in budget seasons. For them to experience what it's like to build a school budget from the ground up, present it to the public, take it to a vote, they would be trained in that process. Over the summer, there's a great deal of auditing experience that happens in public schools. The human resource piece of how we hire and onboard and bring people on to the benefits piece. What are the benefits they get? What are the contracts? All those things typically happen late summer and in the fall. So there's a season for every aspect of running a public school from a business perspective. By bringing in 2 office trainees in this budget, we give them the opportunity to spend a year with Chris and 2 retirees who have expert knowledge to be trained so that we can implement a transition plan for our retirees to leave and leave these 2 people in place and be able to hit the ground running. That's where that number comes from, and it's really a one-time deal.
Correct. We're not looking at this as going to be year over year. This is truly, we have a chance because we were able to absorb this high impact cost to have a future that will actually set us up for exceptional future. The biggest risk to Fort Edward current state is the business office. I rely on 2 retired people that could lead me tomorrow. And if that's truly the case, we're gonna be back in the fiscal problems that we've had. We are set up to succeed, and with that success, it relies a lot on the jobs that we're doing and the multiple facets that are also required by the state to not do a job on one person. What happens is there's so many segmentations of duties that people don't realize in my business world. I can't approve the cost, go out and spend the cost, and sign off for the cost. Like, you can't do that because we can create fraud that way. So we actually have a very segmented world. Just even professional, regardless of your size of school, 3.5 FTE is actually the lowest minimum amount that you should have to do a quality school. Some people have my role as SBO and also do the treasurer. They're saying that's actually bad practice today. You really shouldn't have 2 doing the same job. So this allows us to set up for an amazing future because fiscal stress right now to our school, it's all because we're relying on 2 retired people. So this is the perfect time to bring on 2 trainees to learn from the ground up, as Ben said, go through the whole entire year cycle with 2 exceptional people who have done 65 years at least of information that can pour on each other. There's mentorships that happen through BOCES. It's not always the high tier. These people are on the ground doing the job today. So some of the mentors that are through BOCES or that kind of process, they've done it 20, 30 years ago. compliance issues, hasn't been doing it, so they don't know the relevancy. We have people that are doing that job today that can train our trainees to get them to where we want them to be. And I do feel this will be seamless with my guidance as well. With Ben's leadership, this will be something that we're proposing because our biggest risk right now to our school is the finance office, the business office. Do you guys have any questions to that?
Good.
The head bus driver, we've talked about, we've board approved the position, we've done our postings. We're having a little trouble finding somebody, but we're still in the hunt for that. And then the full-time driver, we also talked about at the same time that we proposed the head bus driver, we've included these prices just so you have what the dollar values are associated with those. The two items in blue are existing positions, but they were not budgeted for. So we want to make sure, transparency, that those are the dollars that are going in. And then the retired teachers' sick pay, we just have to account for the money that goes out that we're actually spending on retiree benefit paying for their sick time. That is not something that we've shown
Correct.
through the budget process, even though we've always done it. We've never shown it financially. This slide indicates that, you know, that is, it looks like an additional cost. It's really not. It's just now we're showing it.
And also to add on to that, why it's different, say the bus transportation purchase, we go out for the community for a proposition vote. So because we're using those funds, we already are asking the community to vote specifically for this. Because we're not doing that for the retiree, it's just kind of like practice we've always been doing. It's still using funds that are considered general fund, but this allows it to be actually itemized within your budget as an accounting piece, where you're saying, yes, we're gonna offset that by a revenue which comes from a reserve, but we still wanna make sure it's part of the budget scheme. I also wanted to point out, going back to this one,
Yes, just jumped over that one.
Yeah.
Full-time substitute. I've used this model in previous districts. We call them preferred subs. And they come to work every day with an assignment. It helps alleviate the chaos that happens in the morning of whether we have enough people or not to cover. And it'll also reduce the amount of internal staff that get pulled from their planning period to go cover for a colleague. In previous districts, we put them on step one of the teacher contract. There's different ways of doing it, but it's a great way for someone who's getting into education, who has their degree, who maybe not have secured another position, to come in and work every day without having to wait for that phone call as to where they're gonna go every day.
Hudson Falls uses them.
So it's not a unique model, but having witnessed our process here, I do think one of each from both sides of, you know, our support staff as well as a teacher, I think is somebody or a process that could really enhance our coverage every day if we can go forward with that.
and even just from a payroll side, I always review the payroll. We're spending thousands of dollars every payroll just on substitutes. So this allows us to be a little bit more efficient, have the right person where, okay, that's gonna be this person's role every day. So there's no confusion of where they're gonna be placed, but from a financial, we're already kind of hemorrhaging money that way. This allows us to have more control from a business and a finance standpoint.
So these lines, are these additions to the 24-25 budget, or is there?
There are additions to this coming up 25-26 budget.
Okay.
So when you look to even we retain the interim superintendent, obviously, he's not being paid that salary, I wish, but
No, you don't.
but that's actually gonna be over what we budgeted from last year. So all of these are what is on top of the budget.
Okay, but like these, okay. So the part-time cleaner and LPN position, these are not total salaries for those?
That's correct. This is over what was previously budgeted.
Okay.
Yep. But you'll see how that 522,000 will be reabsorbed into our entire gigantic budget as we present the presentation and how the numbers land. But again, this is kind of the scary slide, but it's also how to get us to that exceptional school that we're striving to get
So
to.
like the numbers that were in the budget, I mean, we're developing the budget right here, so are these the numbers that are in the budget, are those the numbers from last year, or what?
These are now going to be part of our new budget presentation. So these numbers they're like incorporated. So on top of what was previously budgeted for the superintendent, we're adding that amount to it.
Okay.
And same thing with the restructuring of the administration. With the additional role, you're gonna see an uptick of 105,000. So, but you'll see how it all lands as we present the full budget. Okay. So again, this is our revenue update. We base it on the run that the governor releases. I do want to encourage us to also be mindful that just because the state promises said money, such as foundation aid, they do not always pay what they say they're going to pay. A local superintendent just did a research project. Fort Edward actually didn't always get the money that we were having. So we, as fiscal navigation, but also conservative fiscal, we want to make sure you also realize how some of these aids are presented. But right now, we are less than 258,000 from last year's budget. But what you'll see is, why is that? Well, 2024 and 25, we had over $1 million coming back from BOCES. The FEH BOCES cost when it was for the business office that you had basically outsourced your business office. We lost over $500,000 of those. We paid $522,000 for that service. So it's gonna decrease how much you get back in BOCES aid, and that's why you have a decrease of $200,000. Building aid, because we're now bringing on our capital project, why we were able to do that is we actually significantly dropped our building aid, but that's almost exactly what the debt service savings would also be. So it becomes sort of a wash, but when you see how much we've lost from what the state was going to present to us, it actually only is 258,000, but it's all because it kind of balances as we present how aids land. And these are our current aid ratios. So when it comes to our building aid, we still are at 90%. So again, when we talk our capital project and you're putting in, $1.2 million for capital project, we're getting a almost $15 million capital project. It's because over the period of 15 years, we're getting 90% of that investiture back. Transportation aid also is at 90%. So when we actually talk about our buying vehicles, our buses, over 5 years, you're gonna get 90% of that investiture back as well. So that's how the aids kind of work. BOCES, we're almost at, well, 77%, depending on what service line. But most of our BOCES aid will come back at 77%. So here's the historical of our tax levy and our tax cap. If you see over time, our tax levy has increased. But what you'll see is our tax cap, for the years that we did not increase anything, it kind of is like you sort of said, oh, one day we're gonna hit. That's what happened in 21-22. It went up to 9.7, that was your tax cap. Solely because you had years that you kind of were like, we're not gonna tax our people anything. Eventually, if you don't have that fluid kind of sort of systematic increase, you're gonna eventually pay it somehow. So what we don't wanna do is that. So next year we do have a pilot coming on, and I worked very closely with Sarah Bradshaw, our fiscal advisors. So instead of this year, it was supposed to be around 4-5%. Didn't want to do that to our tax base because next year it drops down to lower than 1. We've allowed it so it's only in that same 2 way. So you're kind of feeling 2% over the board. So that's why this year it's going to be a 2.16 with a 3.701875 tax levy. But because of next year's pilot, we were able to offset that 4 to 5% with a 2.16. Which, since I've been here, I just want to point out it's the lowest tax cap we've done. So yay. And this is how the revenue is broken down. Again, this is estimated. I've lowered it slightly just because you can't always promise the foundation aid will land exactly how the state has promised. So we're using reserve and allocation with our revenues. We have our tax property and our STAR. And we're gonna appropriate our fund balance a little over $1 million. Don't get worried. Right now we're still about 18% with our fund balance. So we have a lot of that. So keep in mind, we're only allowed 4% from the state's guidelines. This allows us to say, you know what, we're gonna stretch that back a little bit. Doesn't mean I'm spending $1.1 million, okay? It's really gonna be, allows us to spend to help balance our budget, and with extra revenues and stuff, we're able to do that. So this is the percentages and how it's all broken down here. And that's the graph for our 25-26 revenues. And this is every budget line. Again, you can see how all our money is spent to the cent. So this is how I do it for all the budgets. So we're talking operation of plant contractual. We work very closely with Steve and what his accounts are and what vendors he uses. We kind of gauge historically, but also talking with him what his true needs are. And this is kind of where we're at. Sometimes, again, you budget accordingly. Sometimes you'll see certain needs of the building. We're getting it to the point where it's a little bit easier to maintain, but sometimes we get hit with some extra cost. But these are driven by some of the information Steve has provided because he's an expert of his field, but also the run rates of what has been purchased through these accounts. We also have our operation of plant electricity and gas. We do that actually through a BOCES. Again, we go through OMC BOCES. That's how we do our electrical and gas. Plant supplies and materials. Again, you can see where the different lines are. Sometimes, depending on what vendor he feels is his best vendor, we kind of can fluctuate some of those POs, but we've readjusted based on also where he's buying a lot of his supplies. You will see, because again, I can't control supply cost, we are seeing, because it's really supply related, almost a 5% increase. But you're gonna see over each of these budget slides how sometimes it's a little higher. I don't have control of that, but we need to also account for that as we're going forward. Here's transportation. We're gonna have some contractual obligations. One of the drop-offs, which you'll see, almost $7,000 loss. We are no longer going to have a lease vehicle. That's why down here, to replace 29, we're actually putting in that purchase. We also are looking for 3 vans, because we do transport our children all across the district, and we have right now a couple runs to Albany. It's becoming kind of problematic because we don't have a lot of the vehicles to sustain. We actually had to borrow a van from Glens Falls City School. So this will allow us, with these, again, purchases through reserve, these will be a proposition that we'll, try to get approved through the community. We will use reserve to fund that, so it'll actually become like a zero cost to the district with the taxes, because we're asking for reserve to be used for that. But over 5 years, you will get that $365,000 back. Yes?
Are we trying to bring transportation back?
That is right now not on a vehicle situation. We would love to. Again, in our heads and our heart, that's what we want to do. It's all about staffing now. So we need to have that head bus driver, that other 10-month driver. If we have those in place, we definitely can be able to consider that. Right now, without those positions filled, it will be challenging, even with vehicles that we have. But right now, we don't want to limit us with vehicles as well. That's another challenge to transportation. We want to make sure.
That would be a good motivator to put out to the community.
We would love to, but I think we're circling the wagons, because I think we've been trying to find the head bus driver with maybe some other limited options. I think there's ways that we can kind of cast a broader net, maybe through a Post-Star or a Chronicle. I think that can open up some other doors. So we're gonna brainstorm how to really get the right candidate in here. We did have applicants, but only one was actually qualified with the requirements that we were looking for. So sadly, they weren't wanting to come aboard, and they were 1 second from getting scheduled for an interview. So, but again, ultimately, we'll find the right people. It's just that sometimes it's a different route. But yes, that's the plan. We would love to bring that back. That's still our plan, but there's a few pieces that we need to make sure they're in line. So right now, it's a staffing issue.
How big is the bigger van?
This is actually, I was throwing out the bigger van because I know Hartford has one, and I've seen it on the road, and it's sort of like I think 10 passenger.
Van?
It's kind of like a box.
It's a more of a higher up type of van
Yeah,
and a lot more seating.
yeah.
So it's not a minivan.
Yeah, it's French.
It's not a minivan setup.
Right.
It's an actual something where if you had ski club
Yeah.
or anything else where, when you shove skis in a car and a snowboards and then
Oh, yeah.
put 5 kids in that minivan, and if you had this, and it's safer,
Yeah.
everything's just the right fit for
And a
it.
teacher can drive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a bus license to,
No, that's a good idea.
This whole brainstorming transportation, that was one of the needs.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. So, oh, did I jump a slide? Okay, so this is our athletics. I did again highlight the athletic coordinator. Again, this would be one of those lines that if we do get the approval to go forward with the extra,
We skipped co-curricular institutional salaries.
Let me think about that. Oop.
There we go.
all right, so table that one, now we're back to co-curricular. These are again contractually based because we're going into the 25-26 season where we actually have the new contract. These are all sort of adjusted, that's why you will see a slight uptick, because there were, many of these positions were readjusted due to the contractual piece. Some things that are kind of out of our hand, but we, again, with board approval, they had the contract, and this is the new salaries attached to the co-curricular. We did add the International Youth Advisor. There are 3 of them, and the stipend for that is still $500 a piece. But these are kind of, and I know there was questioning about what's the difference between the elementary student council, high school student council. I think any of these are still on the table. I know when we were chatting about,
Yeah.
just making sure you guys have the curricular programs that you want. This is where administration can make sure that they're being done the way you want them to be done. So,
That was a big topic of conversation.
yes. And I know we still have that intent in there technically, but I think more communication will be needed to clear that up. But from a finance standpoint, we still support that.
Okay.
The next slide is athletics, and again, highlighted the athletic coordinator piece. If we do have an athletic director, that would not be a needed position, so we will then sort of, save that money in the budget. And some of these, again, don't know if we'll have varsity football, but don't have that crystal ball to predict, so we kind of just, from a budget standpoint, we do have to make sure, wouldn't it be easier? So much easier if I actually knew what tomorrow brought. But this was a way that we have to just, we want to make sure we have the opportunities for our students, so we have budgeted accordingly. So that's again how those monies are spent. And athletics continued. This is a special line item just because we have not had this in previous years. We want to also make sure we have equipment. Point 2 codes are very important to our budget. So when you're talking equipment, we actually cannot put money in once the budget has been approved. You can't put money in, you can't move it for a point 2 code. You can take stuff out, but we still want to make sure we have saved for a rainy day. For instance, we had a problem with our basketball hoops this year, did not budget for it. So we were lucky we actually had point 2 codes in other areas to absorb that impacted cost. We also had to replace the volleyball net. So these are things that would have to be considered equipment, and we got to make sure that we have enough money within equipment codes to absorb those impacted costs. But again, we can't put money in once the budget's been approved. You can only take it out. So this allows us some of that flexibility, and that's why you'll see, well, that change, it's $10,000 more. It's because we haven't actually had that before. And this actually was pretty much what those basketball hoops cost. Actually might have been a little bit lower than what we did spend, but with other equipment codes, this will help us with the athletics piece. We actually readjusted some of these, but these are, again, using the historical rates where we receive the monies.
Didn't know that. Moving dirt. Bobcat of Saratoga. I don't know, my kid played volleyball.
And sometimes, again, when you look at Bobcat, stuff like that, again, some of this is related to making sure your fields are up to snuff.
I didn't know. I was like, why did
So,
we
yeah,
pay Bobcat
Steve's
of
World comes
Saratoga?
in, Steve's World is very impactful on a lot of things that we do here.
$25 for.
Yeah, so,
Yes, it's,
My kid played volleyball.
my brain used softball for a couple of years.
I had no
I knew
idea.
that was moving dirt.
correct. So that was a big piece there, but those are all charges there, and here's continuation of the equipment contractual and supplies. We've actually I want to give a shout out to having a great treasurer. These lines sometimes were inflated, having someone that actually knows where the accounts land. We were able to see what our true costs are. So that's why we were able to actually have about a $10,000 savings, just because I know what the true costs are. It wasn't just, oh, that line just goes there, or we're able to see exactly what we have spent. Another area that we are looking at, and you'll see it's a decrease, we've already decreased it in this budget. We were spending over $5,000 to actually have Dominion voting. We are now looking at purchasing our own voting equipment. So we'll actually get BOCES aid, so we're actually stretching our dollar again. So it might look like a high cost to purchase the equipment. We're actually getting 77% of that back. But what happens is we can save on that $5,000 the annual cost of renting that equipment. And still BOCES aid, we can get the ballots and we can get all the files and all the stuff that needs to be the licensing for every year. It actually will become a major savings for our district. So we did a cost analysis and we were able to see that in just a 2-year time we'll actually recoup that money. So year over year we're actually going to save some big bucks over time. But because we were able to absorb that cost and we're getting that equipment, we were able to lower that by $3,000.
Can we go to the NISBA conference in New York City this year then?
We do budget for it, correct? So,
We can't?
well, again, we have budgeted for it, so
You should.
I
yeah.
wanna go.
It's a great conference.
Yeah, so,
This is the board meeting.
and you'll also see like leadership retreat, we did have a successful one last year. We were talking about that potentially being something we also do. It's always great to have those kind of opportunities to have that professional growth and connectivity piece, so. But these are more equipment contractual supplies.
I wanna go.
I also want to give a shout out to Mr. Halsey in the fact that we have budgeted significantly less than on legal contractual. We are actually saving about $7,500 from last year's budget just on the fact he doesn't have to call the lawyer all the time. So that was really great. Also from an account auditing standpoint, because we're changing our world of the business office, and having people that know their job makes a savings. I think that's my point. So if you invest in your business and you have the right people in the right role, you will see savings within your budget in your business. Same thing with our auditing, because I have people that know what they're doing in the auditing process. We spent actually $65,000 my first year on auditing, because we went through basically 2 audits. It was not done on the first go around, and it was so pricey. So I was like, what do you mean it's $65,000? We were able to last year get it down to 42, and this year we're able to have another $12,000 savings. But again, having right people in the right role saves your business and your bottom line every year when you have efficiencies and expertise built in. So those are 2 reasons of shout out, but we were able to, through all the different, just have an increase of a 6.6 on that slide.
Look at y'all go, saving money.
Trying, and stretching the dollar is very important. So here is more contractual equipment and supplies. I just wanted to make sure that you guys got to see every cent, and the community, since this is available to them as well. They can see every cent, how their monies are spent, and where it lands from last year as well. And more equipment, contractual, and supplies. And here is the summary. So here is all our equipment contractual supplies, and I've taken all those account lines and now I have summarized them by the account line themselves. And compared to last year, $71,000 increase, or 6.32. But you'll see some, where we were able to fluctuate, where we did have some savings.
Now, advanced therapy and those services.
Yes.
You do get reimbursed by Medicaid and
That
things
is
like
correct.
that.
That is correct.
So-
Although we do spend it on the expense side, we will get that as a revenue side. So that's part of where we get those other revenues that we were chatting about before. You'll see that on that side. But again, we do expense it, so we have to make sure we see how much it truly does cost. But we'll get those monies, as you said, we get those charges back. So yeah, absolutely. And here is our first draft of our budget. I've, of course, it can't fit on one slide, so we've actually broke it down. So this is the first A slide. So you're able to see how, again, each account, this is all of our first presentation, this is our second presentation, this is all now added by accounts, and you see the different fluctuations. Although it looks like a huge savings here with the line of K through 3, we actually threw all those elementary teachers in one line from an accounting standpoint, for us also our state aid forms that we have to submit every year, it's actually best practice to break them out. So although this is the first year we're really doing that, you'll see that it's really not a savings. It's actually kind of a break-even point, but I wanted to make sure that was always pointed out. It looks like a savings, but we're actually sort of still at the same place, maybe a little higher. But another gigantic savings, you'll see the $240,000. When I first got here, and again, I know Tim called me out on it, why are we spending over $1 million on this BOCES line? And this is also to do with, sometimes we just didn't know. We didn't know where our students always were going. The communication between that office, as you said, is imperative to the business office to know exactly what our student service, where we're sending them, how much each one lands. And then again, also knowing what our true expenses are, looking at our dollars, we were able to actually save another $240,000. And this is actually what we currently have, with the opportunity of projecting other students coming in district and supporting them. We want to make sure, first and foremost, our students are supported. So at those levels that we know they need, but those services are costly. But this is a way that we were able to have some extra savings. And this was another gigantic big savings when you look at our principal and our interest for our debt service. So, you know, how were we able to bring on an additional $500,000 to our budget with the special education line and with savings of our debt service? We were able to actually have only an increase of $253,000. And this is, again, keep in mind, we just signed a contract with our teachers, with our support staff. So these are including all of those increases in STEP and their salary, their benefits, also increase in healthcare. As we mentioned before, healthcare costs are high. We've only increased it by $253,000, or a 1.9% increase. And this is why we said this is probably the year, if we're gonna start adding these things to the budget to get our school to be that exceptional school, this is the time frame to do it, to invest in our business so that we can make sure that we, again, have savings because we have exceptional people, have the knowledge and the know-how that you're passing that baton to a generation that we have years ahead of us. The conceptual piece is having great leadership that you know we're steering this place in the right direction. It does cost money, but sometimes by putting that money into your business, you're eventually going to save money.
We've come a long way in the last few years.
Absolutely.
I mean, we literally went from standing down the side of the road with a cardboard sign to this. So, you've done a wonderful job, Chris.
It's a team effort.
And Steve.
Team effort.
Been super. But, yeah, I think as a whole, we've come a long way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
What's that?
I just want, yeah, I'm worried.
What are you worried about?
I just want to make sure that we can get the right person in that can still bring in those students, that we can
Well,
build
guess
those
what?
classrooms.
That's
that
our
we
job.
can- Right, I know.
Don't be worried, be confident.
We're also making a very strategy.
Confidence is.
That's a big role to fill.
It is, but you know what? There's plenty of other districts that do it that way. There's, you know,
I don't want to go back.
we're not gonna go back. That's our job.
Mhm.
That's why we're here. And, you know, you have to have faith in yourself, and you have to have faith in the board and the administration. So that's what we're here for. Tim will tell you, it's a struggle sometimes, and it's a fight, but,
He's over here, I'm gonna go.
you know, really, I mean, Tim's been through it, and we know, we'll get it done. And it's so fun. Yeah, Tara, you laugh now.
I'm here, I'm ready to go.
All right, thanks, guys, I really appreciate the in-depth and very informative presentation. All right, so we're gonna move right on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple items for you. As probably many of you know, who have students here or family members, we've completed midterms and Regents exams the end of the month of January. We've also completed our trial run of our computer-based testing. Our districts were required to run through a trial sequencing, so our students are very familiar with the process of using their tablet for performing the state tests. We did a run-through through that so that we could iron out all the kinks with our IT department and get the students familiar with a testing environment. It was a positive experience for everyone, and we learned a lot about it. We're in very good shape for when that comes up later in the spring. We have officially entered academically the second semester of the school year, and it's hard to believe that it's the second semester, but then when you think about everything we've been through so far this year, it's like it's been like 6 years to get to this point. So it really depends on what perspective you look at it. I continue to work with Beth Hoffman through the grant process of Glens Falls Hospital and Pete Williams, the village trustee, on moving forward with the trail that will connect our left field. There's a trail in place that will connect us to Mullen Park. The trail was cleared earlier, and we've had a few meetings. We're now to the point where the grant money is set aside available to get an official landscape designer to come in and actually design the trail from a lighting perspective to the type of surface area that goes down, the retaining wall, that type of thing. So we're securing a landscape designer for that process. And then the grant also covers the materials. The only piece we'll have to work with the village and the district on, and maybe some donations through various people, is the labor of the install. But the core of the trail is there, it needs a good refurbishing. But it does give a safe off-road access to that park. And I think it'll be a real nice feature for us, and we'll continue to work on the logistical side of the house with hopes that we can start implementing it this spring and certainly over the summer so it's available for our students in the fall.
That's great, that's all.
We have a half day on Friday for students so that we can have a half day of staff development day. After dismissal, for their lunch period for our staff, we're having our Soup Per Bowl, where people bring their favorite family recipes of soup and chili and put it down in the cafeteria and have it available for everyone. And then after their lunchtime, we have breakout sessions of de-escalation techniques for students that are in crisis. And each of these are open to all of our employees. It's not limited to just our teachers. So, clerical staff, our TAs, our teachers. We're doing a lot of de-escalation training with our drivers, because they're quite often caught in a position where they have a student that's in crisis and they don't have the training to manage that student properly. And then we also have breakout sessions for them to choose smartboard usage and a refresher course on how best to use a smartboard. We have a retired DEA agent coming in with the latest in contraband detection, that teenagers, understanding what's the latest trends with teenagers in contraband. We have EpiPen and Narcan training. And we also have some specific professional development for our TAs and teachers that have TAs permanently assigned to them, giving them an opportunity to work collaboratively on things that they don't get a chance to work on in the course of the regular day because the TA is specifically with the student. So we're going to give them some professional development on how that relationship should work best. So we're cramming in a lot in a half day, but I think it's going to be a great use of time for our staff before we send them all on break next week.
Which I forgot.
I'll send out a robocall. I'll send out a robocall to younger parents. Don't send your kids next week.
Then you want to get out of it.
I forgot.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Chris, do you have anything?
I do, yes. So again, we're into the budget development process. So I want to remind you that our next meeting is March the 10th. And it's also the night in which you are supposed to adopt our budget. So the topic points that evening are, we're going to again give you the official tax levy tax cap. We will break down the budget into our three parts of administrative, program, capital. We will also present school food service. Again, that's the budget within a budget. The final review of our 24-25 budget, and of course, voting for 25-26. Estimated property tax, we'll be able to give you a kind of that presentation where we have the homes and how much more it's gonna cost for the $100,000 home and that kind of assessment. We'll do the official revenue update and we'll present the reserve plan. So you see where your reserve monies will be going. Propositions also, so we'll show you the review and approvals of those and our projections of our fund balance, so we'll give you that as well.
When do you send out the flyer?
That's right before the budget vote. So,
Well, the hearing, right? You said it before the hearing?
yeah, before the hearing, before the hearing.
I just know last year that was a lot, so they didn't get it
Oh, dear, okay.
early. And then there was like confusion on the time of the hearing and all that. So
Yeah.
it was so we can just make sure that this year we
No.
get it.
It really wasn't, but
I know, but
it was pretty clear.
But duly noted, and we'll make sure that
Yeah.
that confusion is taken care of. I also wanted to give you the update that we did get our new bus purchase that you voted on last vote. We finally got delivered last Tuesday, the 4th, and it was kind of an exciting day, making sure all of that was happening. We gave them back the leased vehicle, and now we actually have bus 34. Yeah, it's very exciting. There are some things that the transportation department has to just kind of learn because the bus is different. There's some, nuances to the new bus, but they're excited as well, and we're ready to look for our next purchases, so thank you.
All right. Steve?
Yeah, just stepping off from where he left off. I was out there, I went with the guy and talked over the bus and everything, and Coachy came along and just got done with his run, hooked up inside and says, "I ain't driving it." Too high tech.
Does that surprise you?
Yeah, too high tech. I mean, there's a lot of new stuff on that bus, so we're gonna take some rides in it and by ourselves and learn the bus. But it is nice. It is super nice.
Good.
But I'm excited that everything seems to be going the positive way as far as transportation. I mean, seeing a new bus here and having that purchase and talking about the new vans and getting things going, we're all excited about it. So on mine, on buildings and grounds, they gotta talk about going up in the world. The kitchen found its new steamer this week.
Found it?
Yeah, we found it.
Hiding.
I'm just so grateful that we had a guy as big as Chris to get that down the stairs
Well, we
with
paid.
his sidekick, because it had to come down the stairs, it wouldn't fit on the elevator.
It wasn't me though.
No, it wasn't Chris, but this guy.
For you.
I'm always there trying to give a hand and stuff, and the guy went, "I got it." And he kind of took his arm, and I was like, "Okay, I'm backing up."
You called your doctor before that.
He brought it downstairs, $30,000
Yeah.
on a steamer, and it is a beauty.
Yeah, you gotta ruin that with money, don't you?
Yeah, it's really, really a nice piece.
And they paid it through a grant, so this
And
is
they-
zero
yeah,
cost to the district.
It's zero cost to us, but
it's ridiculous.
But still, it's a beautiful piece of equipment, and we're gonna serve a lot of great food out of that.
Awesome.
They also got a new merchandiser, which is gonna hold some nice salads and yogurts and all the milk and be able to display it nice. So it's the merchandiser, it's all neat,
Got that on
LED,
Facebook.
LED lighting in it and everything's really nice.
You need to put that on Facebook.
Yeah,
Really?
Ryan Jewis.
really nice down there, so.
Yes.
Electrical, had to have some electrical work done for that merchandise. We can realize new electrical and plumbing for the new steamer, because it's a bigger steamer, required bigger size piping different things than the other one. So some things, but everything's going in shape. I would ask the board, I'm going to take the old mixer out down there, the Hobart mixer, the old one. It's a monster. We're gonna disconnect that and get it out, get everything together. We need to kind of figure out how we're gonna get some bids on that to be able to auction it off or however, but it's worth quite a bit of money
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and it's in good shape.
I don't know
So,
what the legalities of that are, but
I don't know, that's
as far as,
Once you declare it as surplus, then we can use auction house like Auction International and put it up on their site and see
Yeah.
what happens.
yeah. But I'm working on, that's gonna be my next project. Next week also, I'm gonna be moving some equipment around in the kitchen, make it safer for when they're opening the doors above the oven. You open them up and behind, standing, serving food, it's the girls with the hot trays.
yeah, we don't need
We're
that.
gonna move some stuff around and make things more safer and efficient for the girls there. So that's what I'm gonna be working on. We're trying to, I had to learn the hot water system as far as domestic hot water. So I've been working on that this past week or two. There's actually circulator pumps because it's such a big school to keep that hot water circulating. I had to learn about where they were, where the switches were and where the circulator pumps are, and make sure we're getting good flow and where we're restricted and where we're not. So I've been doing a little crawling around and getting stuff, so. But we're getting.
That's normal for you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that, and just very excited working with Tetra Tech on the whole capital project, and anything I can be of service for them, I'm trying to do. So just working with them and getting things moved forward with that. That's all I've got.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. All right, consent agenda. I'd like to do A, the approval of the board minutes, last board minutes, approval of the treasury reports, and approval of the CPSE recommendations, and group those. They get a motion to approve those? Second. Tara and Tim. Any discussion? Motion carried. All in favor? Action items. We have a donation from St. Joseph's Church. Accept the generous donation of winter accessories, including hats, scarves, mittens, and gloves from St. Joseph's. Could I get a motion to accept those? Tara? Audra, any discussion?
Thank
All in
you.
favor? Thank you. Thank you so much. Donation from Washington County Public Health. They would like to donate health supplies, including health kits, lice combs, hygiene kits from the Washington County Public Health. A motion to accept that. Motion. Tim, Audra, all in favor?
Aye.
Donation from Cornell Cooperative Extension, donation of 5 bags of new clothes. Got your motion to accept those? Audra and Tara, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you so much. Donation from First Baptist Church of Glens Falls Thrift Shop, donation of $500 for the school nurse. Can I get a motion to accept that? Motion. Tim, Audra, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Donation from Windy Hills Golf Course, green fees for John. No, I'm just kidding. Accept a generous donation of $1,000 for the backpack program from the Windy Hills Golf Course. Can I get a motion to accept? Tara and Audra, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. And personnel. All appointments are subject to change of compensation proration pending emergency school closing. Required reductions 4th. All coaching appointments are made pending completion verification of all required coaching credentials with a stipend per the FETA contract commensurate with experience, no other salary or benefits. All coaching extracurricular appointments are subject to reduction in compensation, proration, pending final student enrollment numbers, and pending the outcome of any potential mergers and emergency school closings. The first one is the retirement. Accept a letter of resignation with the intent to retire from Karen Galchick effective June 20, I'm sorry? Galsick, I'm sorry, I apologize. Effective June 27th, 2025. Can I get a motion to accept that? Motion. Tim? Second? Audra? Any discussion?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
She has been amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And we wish her certainly a nice retirement.
Yes.
All in favor?
Hey.
The retirement of Christina Bump. Accept the letter of resignation with the intent to retire effective June 30th, 2025. And again, amazing.
Yes.
If I get a motion, and Tara, second.
Second.
Tim, any discussion?
She's come back to do book fair.
Thank you.
She had told me. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
And congratulations on your resignation or your retirement, and good luck, obviously. Clerk. I need a motion to appoint Carissa Curry as clerk provisionally, effective January 24, 2025, at a rate of $35,169.87 per the FESS contract. Need a motion to approve that? Tim?
Motion.
Second is Tara.
What are the duties for this?
She's currently the principal, what would have been Aaron's secretary.
Okay.
She's currently in the position. The exam isn't until May, and she's currently provisional. We need to extend her provisional appointment
Yeah.
until the civil service exam later in the school year.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. And I'm gonna let Ben speak on this, but we will need a motion to appoint Nicholas Kontrosky as interim principal effective February 11th, which is tomorrow, as per the attached contract.
Motion.
Tim. Second is Audra. Any discussion? Does anybody need an explanation other than what we've already had with the superintendent? All in favor? Motion carried. Welcome aboard.
He'll be on the sidewalk with me in the morning.
Nice.
What a guy, dress warm.
I told him that was a requirement of the job, because if I'm gonna be out there,
Does anybody feel a need to go into executive session? No,
I do
good.
not have any.
Is anything, gentlemen? Anything? Then, that being said, I need a motion to adjourn the meeting. Tara and Audra, any discussion at all? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried. Meeting is adjourned.
Nice job.
Thank you all very, very much.
Didn't miss the conference.
Nice.